With events, productions, and creative projects, she is passionate about the opportunity to mentor others and helps creatives to take control of their careers. Audrey also works with organizations designing business structures and systems that foster sustainability. Miss Gray's ongoing work in the gospel music community led to her being headhunted for the role of CEO in January 2021 with the UK governing body for the gospel genre, Gospel Music Industry Alliance. And so she's also the CEO of Industry Developer. And so here we go. This is Audrey Gray. Audrey Gray, it's a pleasure to have you here tonight. You're welcome once again.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for everybody for coming out tonight. That's great. I'm going to make it as snappy as possible because I want to hear from you guys as well. So I'm going to start sharing my screen.
Sure.
Hopefully this will work fine. Can we all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, great, fantastic, good. Right, so Don's given me an introduction already. So and I will go on to show you some of the roles that I cover because I think it's important for if you're understanding the music business, music industry, to understand the various outlets there are and potential jobs there are within the industry. That we just sometimes we don't occupy because we don't know that they're there, or sometimes we don't occupy because we don't think we're any good at them. But I can guarantee you there's something else within the industry that you will be useful in doing or useful in knowing how it works. So here we go. Right, so I wanted to sort of take a look at the general pipeline of artist development. And this is just a simplistic way of looking at it, obviously. So you start with your talent, and then there's usually a phase of artist development. Now that can be done with somebody who is specialized in that area. Nowadays they call this A&R, but this is not really what the initial concept of A&R was for, but I'll explain it to you afterwards. But artist development really looks at drawing a blueprint for the artist and how they're going to unpack their career in the coming months, coming years. So it could be homing in on the artist themselves, so how they want to grow into the industry, or it could be homing in on projects that they need to do. So an EP project, could be some vocal coaching projects or writing projects that they need to do, but it really does home in on the areas that they may be weak at or the areas that they need development in order to make them more marketable or viable in the industry. So marketing, as just mentioned, so marketing and branding strategies are really, really key now in music, more and more because there's so much music in the market. You need to carry a sustainable brand, something that will engage your audience to know you as an artist, know you as a person, know what you like, what you dislike, that to become more connected with you. And in doing that, then it will be easier for you to sell your music to them. We're getting to a stage almost where great music is great music, but your brand is the thing that's going to make them love you more than your music. And so it's important to connect with your fan base on every level and to understand who your fan base are, etc. So when you have somebody working on a marketing strategy, there's an element of branding that goes in there that really helps to solidify that, really helps to look at who you are serving and find out why do people like your music. It's not why do they like you beyond your music. It's those things that are going to enable them to keep coming back to you. And then the whole process of making music, being a music creator, developing a band, if that's something that you need to do, that whole process, it can be difficult and it could be easy. So I know some artists are really quick at writing, they're quite easy at writing. Some need to be connected with other writers to help develop that process, and some need to start from scratch. Yeah, start from scratch. And then in this process, well, you could find out that, you know what, I'm not really wanting to be an artist, I'm wanting to be a writer. You might be a really, really strong writer, and that could potentially earn you more money than being an artist. And it's a good way of working smarter is to be a great writer that you can write for others as well. Okay, and then there's the aspect of revenue. Of course, in this process, you need to figure out where are the points that you make money other than streaming and CDs, if physical CDs is something that you're selling as well. So the areas of merchandise, the areas of touring, which is what live appearances will go on to be, but looking at all the areas that you can make revenue, sponsorships. If you really built a really good brand, then it will be easier to get revenue from sponsors because they obviously want to affiliate their product or service with you because you're out there doing the do. And your popularity is their popularity. So that's another way of doing that. And then I'm not sure what regions people are from, but there are some organizations or some government institutes that will allow you to apply for funding, etc., like that. So you need to really investigate what there is in the market to be able to gain revenue. And of course, it's things like merchandise. Normal, you must have merch. Sometimes your merchandise could sell you more than the cost of your booking fee, so it's something not to be neglected. And it can be done very cheaply with drop shipping, etc. So you don't have to be putting out money in front in order for people to get that merchandise to their door. So as I said, I'm talking about career planning, but also industry roles. So here are some industry roles that lean on the creative side more than the technical rights side or production side. And does anybody, maybe you can put it in the chat, not know what one of these are that you'd want me to explain? And out of all of these, are you not clear on it, on what any of these are? So for me, I've actually done all these roles, and I do all these roles. And that sounds absolutely crazy, but in the gospel arena, when you want to get stuff done and you're working with an artist and you're determined to get music released, etc., you're going to grow into doing these things just by progression, because that's how I did it. So I started here at the bottom effectively as a vocal coach, but inevitably I went on to develop some of my students into artists just by encouraging them to do more with their singing, etc. Then I ended up sort of introducing artists to producers and then to musicians. Then that kept going. Eventually I realized, wait, I'm managing these artists, and then I'm booking for these artists, then I'm releasing music for these artists, I'm making sure that their music rights was up, etc. So by default, you could quite easily find yourself doing these. And by no means you need to be an expert in every one, but you need to be knowledgeable in it, definitely. Yeah, so that's more of the creative skills and roles. And then these are other roles that I've picked up along the way as well, which have been key to be able to unlock other things. So being able to, I know, simple things like working out schedules and logistics, right? So some people are really good at that, some people just really terrible, but that enabled me to be able to produce a tour. So I self-produced a tour that went around the Caribbean, and I've since sort of worked with other artists to help build their tours out as well by the same principle. It's a particular head, I guess, you have to have for things like that, but if it's something that you pick up and you know that you can do easily, don't take it for granted that other people can do it easily. It can become something that could be quite lucrative for you to be able to offer as a service, for example, to help build out other people's tours, or event production. If you've got an eye to go to events. I think I've got to a stage now where I go to events and I'm looking at what's wrong Because, and then going back to the producers or the promoters to say you could have done it like this, or you could have done this, and then ended up working with them long term. So these are, again, more roles that are all industry related, and I'll show you later what the dynamics of a label structure looks like. But I want you to be clear that everything that you do is actually useful towards your career, and you shouldn't discount it as, I'll probably never use that again. You will at some stage, or you will be engaging with somebody who does, and therefore it'll be easier to ask the right questions. Right. So, okay, so most artists are very focused on these areas, the creative areas of their career. I would hope you're looking to write great songs, because great song is what's going to carry you through. A great song can get you booked 3 years in advance, and it has got other artists booked 3 years in advance because they've had one great song. A great song is timeless, so there's no need to be rushing your production down. I can't tell you how much I hate that. I can hear when music has been rushed down. It's just, nobody's, like I said in a live yesterday, nobody's promised you a Grammy. So take your time and pace yourself and write good music. And if it's good music, it will be timeless. So there's nothing to be concerned about in that sense. There's great planning that has to be go behind when you're releasing a good song as well. So take your time with those things, most definitely. Right. So when I say tailor-made career services, so it would be like artist development services or artist management services. But I would say that you need to be honest with yourself in that particular stage of your career for you to warrant those things, because they do have percentages attached to them. There's no use saying that I need a manager. Okay, so here's a scenario that comes up regularly. I have an artist come to me and say that they need a manager, but I manage them. But then when I ask them, why do you think you need a manager? They say because they need bookings. But then you need a booking agent. And then we've got to question that a little bit further. Why aren't you getting bookings at the moment? Why do you think that is? And very often it's because they need to go one step back and develop their career better, their artistry better, in order to be more viable in the market. So it's very important that when you sit down with somebody who's giving you a career assessment or doing any kind of career development, that you allow them to speak to you and to be honest with yourself about where you're going. It doesn't take away from you, it'll only add to you. Yeah, so again, about these creative slots, so that the career development is one of them. Songwriting, having a band that's committed. Yes, that can be difficult as well, because a lot of the time you have a vision, but will everybody else stand in for your vision as well? That's the question. So having that commitment from a band, or even if you just have an MD that you work closely with, a keyboardist that you work closely with, that can help you develop what you're doing in terms of songwriting if you don't play as well, and production, that can be a very good input into your career. And then live events and touring, again, if you're not firing on all the other cylinders, then it's going to be difficult to get live events, and then it's going to be even harder to tour, because you have to warrant touring. Touring is becoming more and more expensive. Most recently, we've seen a lot of artists withdraw themselves from tours because it's just becoming too costly. And I think after COVID, it's even more costly, because you have to think about, do all your band members have vaccinations? Are they going to be allowed into the country without vaccinations? Do they have to quarantine when they get there? Because that's money that you're missing out. You're not able to work those days because you're in quarantine. So things like that are getting more expensive. And then because of COVID as well, a lot of the production companies that supply tour gear or supply stage, sound, lighting, they've lost money. So they're trying to regain it from every little gig that they do. So those things become more expensive. So again, it's about so what I do is do sort of a feasibility assessment to see how feasible is it for you to tour. Then at least you know what type of tour you're going to end up with. Is it a promotional tour? So the sole objective is to promote your music. It's not for profit. I know that's hard to get your head around for some people, but it's not for profit, but it's to highlight your music. And then you be very strategic about where you place yourself so that you're in front of audiences that can then give you more audiences or give you more opportunities to get booked onto bigger events. So, or is it a for-profit tour in that sense? And then if it is for profit, what are your numbers saying? Are your numbers saying that you can command profit from your tours? So yeah, kind of went off on a tangent there, but there you go. That's the creative focus, but I never want people to neglect the basics. Now, when I say they're the basics, they're the basics. I don't want to hear that nobody doesn't understand their music rights. They don't understand what copyright is. They don't understand what publishing is. There is so much on the internet that you can go and Google, or you can go watch a couple of YouTube videos to find out about music rights. I could do a separate thing about that because it can be intricate, but knowing your music rights, having your music registered correctly, working with publishers, working with sync license managers, music supervisors, you could be making money in your sleep. I think we need to learn how to work smarter. So your music rights, your metadata, all that sort of not so exciting stuff, but is highly important to make sure that you keep getting revenue. And again, with those kinds of things as well, they can produce amazing stats for you to show you where your music is actually being played worldwide. And then that could help you focus how you tour, for example. So you might have songs that you've stopped singing years ago, but if your music PRO, your Music Rights Association can show you, well, actually this song has been played, 5,000 times in China, then maybe that's where you should be looking to go on tour, or where you should be looking to connect with people. So definitely your music rights. Yeah, maybe I'll do, like I said, maybe I'll do a separate slot on music rights. I know one of the other speakers is probably going to cover branding and visual marketing, and she's very good at that, and monetizing your music, which is all part of music rights as well. So all these are interrelated and they all need a focus. And I know it probably is very overwhelming to hear that as an artist, I've got to do all these things. As I said yesterday, being an independent artist doesn't mean alone, right? And don't get it twisted. All those independent artists that you see out there, they have teams, right? Whether the team is their mum or dad, or it's their friend, or it's somebody in the church that helped them, they have other people assisting them to get where they want to get to. Nobody's good at everything, right? So you can't be doing, it's really hard to do, and I really sympathize with people to keep up with your social media. It's really hard. Social media is a beast. Once you start feeding it, you have to keep feeding it. So you have to keep thinking about how can I add content or build content to be able to release to an audience. And again, you've got to be very intentional about that as well. Very intentional about collecting content. So, when you're going to studio, if you film yourself in studio, that's content. If you film yourself on the way to the studio, that's content. You've got to think about every little opportunity that you can bring your audience into your world and make them part of your process. But yeah, I'm sure the other speaker will probably speak on these things as well. Then I wanted to, so don't fall off your chairs, guys. But yeah, when I think about a label, this is kind of the structure that you think about when you think about a label, right? And I've separated it. So this is fortunate or unfortunate for some people. This is how my brain works. I've separated into these three areas. There's an area of development, administration, and product development, effectively, or product delivery. And labels, well, the bigger labels will have all this stuff catered for by individuals within their company. Management do this also. They have to keep an eye on this as well. And this is why managers charge a percentage, as well as the fact that they have influence that will help to push your career. Management percentages are like 20%. Label percentages could be that or more, depending if they give you advances, because then they need to recoup their advances from the music that you sell or don't sell, right? They need to find a way to recoup it. So very often then they put their hand into everything else that you're making money from. So from your merchandise, from your sponsorships, from endorsement deals, etc., in order to sort of gain back whatever funds they put in. That model for labels to pour into you until you make it big doesn't really exist, right? Because what they are effectively doing is giving you some money up front for you to get some of it done. So they may be giving you money to do your videos and your production done. But you in turn have to use the people that they tell you to use effectively. So you're using their photographers, their videographers, their producers, whose rates might not be the best, and it might not be producers you even want to work with, but that's how that is structured. Because I guess the thinking is, if we're giving you this money, we have to make sure that you're spending it wisely, which means it's still not your money. I just want to let you know that. So while I'm not anti-label, because I think at a particular stage of your career, you can negotiate with a label enough for it to make sense, for you to get the components that you need from it and dump the rest, so that you're not constantly sort of trying to recoup or chase your tail, if you like. But I do think that working with management is probably the better way to go. But more and more, personally, I'm seeing management relationships being more of a business relationship, because it's not about, this is my manager and he's working for me. No, he's working with you, because the way the industry is set up now, the manager's 20% is never really going to recoup the amount of work that they've put in and the amount of work they need to maintain and the constant monitoring of what's going on in your career and where better outlets, etc. Well, a good manager, it's not really going to measure up anyway. But yeah, so this is what that structure looks like. Again, I've been in scenarios where I think I've touched on all of these in one shape or form, or at least be managing elements of this. And that's not to overwhelm anybody again. And I think if I go back to this structure, the very basic one, I would say that in order for you to start your career, if you're thinking about building a team, really you need an artist developer and a marketing strategist of some kind. So your marketing strategies can cover marketing, promotion, social media, branding, and your artist developer can help build out your career and make the right connections with the right people to make better music, to gain better revenue, to give you live appearances. So even before you think about management, it's really about working with this part of your talent and this artist developer in order to get your ducks in a row, to get everything moving in the right direction and to keep things on track. And I recognize this is a really big commitment for a lot of artists, because you have your life running alongside this, and it can be difficult, but yeah. And that's why you have to have a really good relationship with whoever you're working with, because they've got to understand that this is your life, but you have your life as well. So how does that look? How can you work together to make that work? Which is why I'm stressing that a manager is more of a business partner that you have, rather than somebody that works for you. It just can't work like that. I think that's it. I've done my slides, and I would like, anybody got questions, I'm very open to answering questions and or going over some of the things that you may or may not have understood here. Please speak up, people. Please make the most of this, please. Please make the most of it. Hi, Joelle. So there's someone in the chat here that knows me very, 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 very well. And he's one of the producers that I worked with when I was working abroad as
Audrey.
well. Hey, how you doing?
Doing good.
Yeah. Questions, people? Questions in the chat, or I don't know if Don wants to unmute people so they can ask questions as well.
Okay, guys, so you can send your questions. You can put them in the question or the comment section, or you can just unmute yourself and then ask your question.
Can you identify major differences between artist developer? All right, okay. I didn't see that before in the chat there. That's great. So your artist developer is going to help to develop you from grassroots up. Really, a manager, you only need a manager. And this sounds crazy. You only need a manager when you're actually got something to manage. So if you think of it that way, that your career is still being developed, it's still getting to a stage where you're getting great numbers, and when you're getting sales, etc. That's when you start to move over towards a manager. So I know what you're asking yourself. So why do I need a manager then? Because a manager will have connections. A manager will have connections to make you more commercial viable. So they probably have connections into, getting your music into TV, or better collaborations with different artists, etc. So they can make a lot more high level negotiables for you. And as well, they are sort of key in working out the legal wranglings as well. So they will work with music entertainment lawyers to make sure that the contracts that you are being presented, the features that you are doing, that you're getting all the money that you're supposed to be doing. And artist developers not meant to be doing that. They will help you understand that process, but they're not going to be in that process. So they're not holding your hand to fill out the applications or to do all of that. They will educate you and guide your career. So yeah, that's, I think I've got it there. What does a creative director do? Yeah, it depends on the capacity, because you have creative directors that do like like train you to do live performances. You have creative directors that will help you if you're doing music videos, for example, that will direct your video. So as you understand a director to be, or you have creative directors that can work on your music projects. So say if you're doing an album or EP and you're collaborating with another big artist, that director might be called in to make sure that the project is running well and that the direction of the project is going to match whatever you're supposed to be doing with the other artists. That transition, the sound, it could be anything. So creative director could be quite a few things. Questions? Mm-hmm.
Hi, Audrey. This is
Hiya.
Angela. This is Angela from Jamaica. Unfortunately, I got messed up with the time difference, and I came in late. So I will, of course, rewatch this video. But
Okay.
just for my you probably did this before, but could you tell me a little bit of yourself? That way I can steer my question.
Okay, so like what I've had said before is that I started working in the music industry as a vocal coach so I'm from London, and I started doing that while I was living on the island of Trinidad and Tobago. And I started vocal coaching students, then sort of eventually thinking, they're really good. They need to do something more, because I am very much about pushing people to upgrade themselves, to empower themselves. So I started introducing my students to producers, and then to musicians, and then bit by bit sort of figuring out, wait a minute, I'm managing these artists, because at every point they would come back to me and say, Miss, I don't know what to do next. I've done this. We've got 8 songs. What should we do next? So that kept happening. And just by extension then, and wanting to see their career go to the next level, I just sort of quite organically started to learn, okay, right, what do you do with an artist once they've got music ready? Okay, they need to do a music launch. Okay, how do you do a music launch? And sort of building it out like that, so which subsequently sort of, let me show you this screen. I'm not sure which one you can see. Yeah, which has led me sort of to these two things. So the vocal coaching sort of led me to artist development, then artist management, then, you know, working to make sure their music rights was good, then getting tired of doing that and doing a lot more music education, because I figured that's what a lot more artists needed. They need to understand what they was getting into in the first place. Then doing music marketing, booking agent, talent management, in terms of I had a lot of promoters then start coming to me to ask me who they should book for their festivals and their shows. And so that those kinds of relationships helped to propel the artists I was working with as well, because then I could recommend my own artists as well as, you know, other artists in the market. So yeah, I think that's how this skill base has grown. I run an organization called Industry Developer, which helps to develop artists' careers and organizations' projects. And I'm the current CEO of Gospel Music Industry Alliance, which is the governing body for the UK genre in the UK. UK gospel genre. I think that's it. Yeah, that's me.
I'm happy I asked a question first, because I'm going to be able to ask my next question. And I'm happy the last thing you said was that you were in the gospel music industry.
Okay, cool.
And that's an industry we are in.
Yeah.
And based on your experience, because I'm so happy that you're so broad in terms of what you have managed. How do I phrase this question? I wanted to ask, as gospel artists, how do we position ourselves differently to break? Because, you know, we're in Jamaica, and it's reggae and it's dancehall, and so you find that those are in terms of the secular feel, it's just out there and big, and just for gospel, it's just like difficult getting in and getting a foothold. Although we're better than a lot of other people in terms of gospel still being, you know, having a position.
Hi, Angela.
Hi. So
unfortunately, we have 1 minute more.
you're out of time.
Yeah, so we have to quickly end
do?
it so that we can restart it.
Okay, fine, no problem. So it gives you
that,
time
and
to
then
think,
I'll answer
Audrey.
you.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
guys,
come back.
we are ending it, and so you can
and
join
then
us
everybody's
next
fine.
week.
Okay, cool.
Okay, no
All right.
problem.
Okay, cool.